Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for another, but this time a proper Chelsea transfer special. As we are, as you can see on screen, joined by Nathan Gissing. You don't really go by CFC News page much anymore. You're just known as Nathan Gissing nowadays, aren't you? So thank you for joining us again. I appreciate it very, very much. We'll get to Pys in a second. It's been a busy window already, even though we've barely signed anybody, hasn't it? But the outgoings have been kind of crazy.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on here again. And yeah, it feels like the window's already been open for months, but it's only at the beginning still. So yeah, a lot to get through.
Absolutely. Pys, I'll bring you in as well. Obviously, we're seeing more and more departures. We had all the guys leaving to Saudi Arabia, Koulibaly, Ziyech, Mendy, obviously Kante as well as a free agent. Now we've got here we go for Romelu Loftus-Cheek today, going to AC Milan, even though for a couple of weeks that looked like it might be off after obviously their directorship restructure, letting go of Maldini and others as well. But that seems to be happening now. Loads of weird reports where like Poch wants to keep Kepa as number one, but then Chelsea want to maybe sign Mignon anyway. We'll get into that later on. But a lot happening, isn't there? A lot happening, and still a lot of outgoings to come. So, Pys, obviously it's the 27th of June today. This is I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now, but how many more outgoings are you expecting from now until, well, I guess June 30th? And how many do you expect after? Because the ones after are a lot less. There's a lot, like, we don't need them as much, the ones after June 30th, I guess, right?
Yeah, the outgoings have been really good, to be fair. I've been quite impressed with the sporting directors getting all the outgoings gone. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 that have left or are leaving, right? Loftus-Cheek moved very quickly the last couple of days, so that's another one, unfortunately for you, Lawrence. But I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? You know, I think we just have to sort of accept the prices. Not that we're giving straight away, but I think they're doing a good job in terms of, you know, like cutting our losses on some players. Like you've seen Koulibaly, Ziyech, Mendy just going out the door because we need to reduce the squad size. So no, I think they're doing good. In terms of the rest of this week, I think the Loftus-Cheek one will probably be announced at some point in the next few days. And I think the big one is obviously Mason Mount because, you know, the 1st of July is Saturday. So I think that one needs to be sorted. You know, Fabrizio was saying there's going to be new contacts in the next sort of 24, 48 hours. So I think that needs to come to a definitive decision this week for the financial books of the club. So, you know, I would say Mason Mount, Loftus-Cheek and anything else is a plus. You know, I think Marzio, who obviously Nathan works with, has mentioned Christian Pulisic as well, might be going to Milan. So, yeah, I mean, that could be another one. I've been surprised, honestly. I thought we was going to struggle, but we really haven't. And, yeah, I mean, it's great, honestly. It's great. Really good.
Yeah. No, fair play. I mean, you touched on it there that Nathan does work for or with Di Marzio. Nathan, just for people that maybe don't know you, obviously a lot of people will off Twitter and stuff, but some might not. Do you just quickly want to explain what you do and why you are here? And I'm calling it the transfer special.
Yeah, so it all started in 2021, in the summer of 2021, where I started reporting news on Chelsea, and I broke Lukaku positive talks with Tuchel, and then I broke the sour news, and then I began working with Gianluca Di Marzio in December 2021, and then that came the January window, and yeah, it's just gone on from there. I joined Twitter in December when I signed with Gianluca, and yeah, I run an Instagram page called CFC News page on Instagram, which I've been doing for a while now.
Very good, very good. And this is actually also asking from my perspective, if you can obviously say this, in what capacity do you work with Di Marzio? Because I feel like that people might find that quite interesting.
Yeah, we text a lot. We share news. You know, he asked for my confirmation. We just exchange messages and stuff like this. And I work with some of his Sky colleagues as well, because the website contributes to Sky as well. Yeah. So all the stuff has to align with Sky Germany, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of communication involved.
There you go. See, you might not word it that way. I will just call you Di Marzio's Chelsea guy. Do you know? I would just put it that way. If Di Marzio needs any Chelsea news, he comes to Nathan. So when I need Chelsea news, I come to Nathan. Just a little bit of a recap over the last couple of weeks, shall we? With the Saudi news. How did you perceive that? Like, did it come out of nowhere for you as well? Did you kind of see this coming, that Chelsea would maybe strike a few deals to Saudi Arabian clubs after that? After Bowley obviously flew out to Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks before that, or was that something that kind of took everyone slightly by surprise, and especially with how many and how quickly it all happened? Because there was also a report, and you can say whether you heard the same as well, that the Saudis initially wanted to offer us 100 million for like all 4 players, and then the 3 that went plus Lukaku. But Lukaku didn't want to, so then we had to, make a separate deal with all 3. How did you see that whole all going about? Because that was kind of the real kickstarter of the whole clear out of Chelsea, wasn't it?
Yeah, it came as a surprise to me, to be honest. I didn't really see it coming. I saw it more coming when the Benzema news came through. I thought, right, this might be something of start of something with Saudi, and yeah. It makes sense with Koulibaly, and because I knew there was interest from Saudi for Koulibaly, and that obviously went through. Was it yesterday? I think was it official yesterday? And obviously Mendy's pending, and Ziyech looks good. But yeah, no, it did come as a surprise to me. And yeah, I expect a lot more deals like Aubameyang maybe go in there, because I think that's probably as likely as destinations as Saudi. But he also has that idea of remaining in Europe. But yeah, I expect a lot of more Saudi news to come through for sure.
Interesting, very interesting. And the last bit of recapping, I guess we'll do a bit more with Ruben and Nicolas Jackson. But before that, Kai Havertz obviously moving to Arsenal. It's now essentially official. He's been pictured in an Arsenal shirt already by now. Not that Jorginho's Instagram post already not confirmed it before that. What did you make of that? I think we should also clarify to people, you're not just a journalist, whatever you want to call yourself in this scenario, but you're also actually a Chelsea fan as well, which I guess makes this a bit more interesting for you especially. But what did you make of, well, first of all, how the Kai Havertz move came about? But I'm not sure if you have any, but if you have any insight about how that came about, like, was it a case of Kai was like, I kind of like to leave now, or was it Chelsea like, okay, we need to recoup money, Kai is a guy that we get a lot of money for, let's get him gone? How did that whole thing come about?
Well, first of all, Havertz, he was keen on moving on. Chelsea ideally wanted to keep him. That was what I was told. But, with the whole policy of him running into his contract of 2 years left, it was kind of renew now or sell to recoup the most amount of money. So, and Chelsea did that. They got 65 million, which they wanted. I think it was a great piece of business for sure, plus add-ons as well. So I think it was a great piece of business. And yeah, it was a pretty quick deal actually, because there was a lot of rumours of Real Madrid, wasn't there, and Bayern Munich, but there was nothing really on that. It was just, I think that was more the player side pushing that a bit more to get the player to move on. But yeah, the Arsenal one was quite a smooth deal, and I think Chelsea did well for sure.
And from your own personal perspective, you happy with him joining Arsenal, or does that part kind of frustrate you?
I don't know. I see both sides to it. I think it's probably the best deal for all parties, because the player ultimately wanted to join, and Chelsea got a decent amount of money for him. So I think it's the best deal for all parties. But you do say Chelsea sold him to a rival, which has that part to it. And if he does well there, then obviously there's going to be a lot of talking points. But I think overall, to balance the books, I think it's a good piece of business.
Fair play. I do want to take it on to something that has, essentially come out of Italy, because it's going to Italy. Loftus-Cheek. But along with Loftus-Cheek, obviously, like Pies touched on a second ago, the whole story of Christian Pulisic potentially also going to AC Milan, or rather, I should say AC Milan potentially being interested. What about the Ruben deal? Because that was kind of nearing final stages already, wasn't it? Before the whole Maldini sacking, let's call it, took place. And then they just took it back on, but had to sell Tonali first. Do I understand that right? Or how exactly did that come about in the end, after we thought it had kind of fallen through and there was apparently interest from Inter as well, but now he's still going to AC Milan?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind story, isn't it? It went from concrete to everything went quiet, and now obviously it's pretty much done. But yeah, no, it's AC Milan have had an interest in Loftus-Cheek for a while now. Lazio are also quite keen, but again, they can't really afford his wages. Inter Milan also liked him. In fact, they were interested last summer. So yeah, there's been a lot of interest in Italy from him, but yeah, it came about because it went pretty quiet recently, and then with the whole situation of their board getting sacked and everything was adjusting, they had to adjust everything and get everything in order again. And yeah, they've gone back to Loftus-Cheek and they pretty much sealed the deal this morning. It wasn't quite done last night, but yeah, it's on them. It's pretty much done now, and I think it's a good move for him. Again, I think Chelsea got a good deal for him. But, the players' wish was to go there. So overall, again, I think it's a good deal.
Yeah, no, I think as much as Ruben is one of my favorite players, and as much as it's a bit sad from that perspective, that he is leaving or has left or whatever, I do agree that it's for him, for us, it's probably a good move overall. I would be intrigued how much of a pay cut he's taking to go to AC Milan, but I'm not sure if you know about that, but I would be intrigued regardless. No, there you go. What about the interest in Christian Pulisic? Would you call that concrete as well at this point already, or at what stage do you think that one is?
I think there will be some. I think it will get hot soon on Pulisic because I was told he's probably going to go on loan pretty soon. Same with Datro Fofana. So I think there's going to be something.
Oh, well, something happened there, but I'm sure he will join in a second again. But Pies, let's just take that. What he just finished off. He said loan.
Is that loan with an obligation?
Nathan, I'm not sure if you're aware. We lost you and now you're back.
Oh, am I? Could you hear me or?
Yeah, no, now we can hear you fine. All of a sudden you were just gone and now you're back. I have no idea what happened.
Okay.
So the last thing I heard you say, bro, was Pulisic loan. And that's what I was just going to kind of touch on. Why a loan? Is he not taking a wage cut or what's the issue?
It's not that. It's, well, he's willing to join. He's willing to join AC Milan, and he's keen. He can take a pay cut for sure, but they're also struggling to find permanent suitors to pay that money Chelsea want. Gianluca said last night 25-30 million euros. So it could be a possibility of maybe that 25-30 million euros obligation, loan with an obligation or something. It might be something, because I think they also discussed the option of Loftus-Cheek because there was rumours also of a loan with an obligation for Loftus-Cheek. So I think that could be something we see with Pulisic. Obviously, the contract will have to be extended. So they have to do that, agree the deal, and then potentially a loan with obligation. But we'll see how negotiations go. But yeah, I was told it was likely going to be a loan with an obligation. But let's see how negotiations go.
No, fair play, but is this AC Milan for the time being the main and the only kind of likely destination, or are there other clubs that are at least somewhat interested?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest from Italy. I saw a report from Lyon the other day that interest, which is true. But I think AC Milan are the hottest side at the moment that are keen on him. But they also want Chukwueze, so we'll see how that goes. So they might spend that money on Chukwueze and then maybe try and get a loan with an obligation for Pulisic. But they just did get a good piece of money from Tonali, so they have got money. But again, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
No, exactly. First of all, shout out Lewis for the raid. Shout out everyone that has joined from Lewis's stream. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that like button. That'd be massively appreciated. Pies, I want to get you involved on this one as well, on the back of what Nathan's just told us. First of all, what do you make of that? Like that it's a loan with, well, hopefully an obligation. If it's an option, I'll be fuming again. But if it's a loan with an obligation, I guess we can deal with that. It's not even that I so desperately want us to get rid of Pulisic, because I think if Ziyech leaves, Pulisic leaves, and we'll talk about him soon as well, Hudson-Odoi leaves as well, well, then we need someone else. Either buy someone or figure something else out who can be the backup winger on one side, because otherwise we only have 3 wingers, and you can't go through a whole season with just 3 wingers at the club. It don't work like that, right? So what do you make of this one then? And like, do you see him ending up at AC Milan on a move like that, Pies, or what do you reckon?
I think it will come down to like what Nathan said, whether they do a loan and obligation, or whether they do spend some of that money that they've got from Tonali and just buy him permanently. Yeah, I mean, I think he'll leave for sure. I wouldn't honestly mind keeping him for depth, but at the same time, you know, he's going to want to play at this stage in his career. You know, he's been sitting on the bench here for like 2-3 years. So, yeah, I do think he'll move. I'm not sure where it will be AC Milan, but it probably will be. But you know, he'll move somewhere. I'm surprised actually he's not got more interest from the Premier League. To be honest with you, like I'm quite surprised there's not a few clubs anywhere to my knowledge that, you know, are looking at him, maybe tabling an offer. But yeah, I mean, he's going to want to leave at this stage in his career. You know, he's going to want to be a starter. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame really, because I think he's a talented player, but I think he'll move on.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, Nathan, obviously, is there any interest from Prem clubs as well, or is it mostly Italy at this time?
Yeah, mostly Italy for now. Yeah, I haven't really heard of anything from Premier League for now, but who knows?
No, of course, you know, things can change as the window moves on. One last thing I want to ask about this Pulisic thing, because of the valuation, right? And we apparently are looking for 25 to 30 million. I'm not sure if that's pounds or euros, but regardless,
Euros.
Euros, there you go, makes a bit more sense. But I do, like, obviously he is a very, like, marketable player. He's a good player as well when fit and when used. But I do still find it interesting. And of course, he's a bit younger, but we were seemingly happy to sell Ziyech for apparently £7 million, 8 million euros, whatever it was. But for Pulisic, we're not willing to lower that transfer fee so we get a permanent deal straight away. And that makes it more likely that it's going to be a loan now. Why do you think that is? It's just purely because of how marketable they think he is. And therefore, you know, it would just be a waste of money to almost sell him for any less. And they just hope a good loan could just bring his value back up and then make more money from it. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think what you just said there is the idea of, you know, hopefully he has one good season because we know the talent he has got. You know, I think he's a good player. I think he just needs a game, you know, a run of games, consistency. You know, all he needs is consistency, and you know, 10 minutes off the bench is no good for a player like Pulisic. You know, we see it on international level. He's always performing with America. That's why they call him Captain America. But I just think he needs that confidence. It's all, you know, that's what it is for a player, confidence. You need to feel, you know, you're involved. And I feel like he's missing that at Chelsea. So I think, you know, a loan with an obligation, you know, could be good. It could be, Chelsea might think if he has one, you know, a good season, they might say loan with obligation for 35. Who knows? You know, because we know he's got the talent.
Will Milan agree to that though if it's an obligation, right? Because on their part, it's obviously a bit of a risk, you know. Because if he doesn't have a great loan, then they've signed to an obligated fee, right? While on the other hand, if we give them a fairly low obligated fee and then he has a great loan, then Chelsea said, we should have only loaned him, and then so like that. That's why these obligation ones, when it's not purely on the basis, okay, we need to get rid of some player. Like if it's a case of like a player like Pulisic, like we just spoke about, I find it I find it difficult from both sides because everyone's kind of taking a bit of a risk when you're doing a loan and obligation to me. But I guess, what do I know?
It's like the Bakayoko one, wasn't it? It's like the Bakayoko one, you know. I mean, if they don't feel it's working, they could even send him back in January. Who knows? That it might be a case
then they don't
do
have
that.
to use the obligation. Isn't that what obligation means, though?
It depends if you reach a certain amount of, say if he reaches 50, I don't know, not 50, 30 appearances, and that was a target in the obligation, maybe it already activates. But say if he makes 10, it doesn't activate the obligation. So I think it just depends on certain conditions.
I hear you. Absolutely, I hear you. All right. A few other potential outgoings. I asked Pice that earlier. I'm sure you heard. Which other players do you expect to see leaving in the end? I'm talking players like Hudson-Odoi, Gallagher, Chalobah. I'm sure there's others that are not necessarily. Obviously, Aubameyang is the most clearest one. He will most certainly not be at Chelsea. Where he ends up, I don't know. But he won't be at Chelsea. I'm pretty sure of that one. But with Gallagher, Chalobah, like I say, these guys, I'm not 1,000,000% sure. Maybe also throw like an Ian Martin in there. Maybe a Lewis Hall. What's happening there? Marco Cucurella, because obviously Ian Martin and Lewis Hall future will depend on if anything happens with Cucurella. Is there anything you can say about any of those, or is it a case of some of these players will still get kind of reviewed and looked at by Poch in pre-season, and only then will decisions be made?
Bit of both. Obviously, I think we'll start seeing more concrete things with outgoings. Obviously, we've seen a lot already, but that was because of players that don't want to be there. Like Ziyech, we already knew he was going to leave. So, but I think we'll get a clearer idea in July with the pre-season, and we'll see who's involved. But yeah, it's not very clear at the moment. It's still quite early. We'll start to see more loan opportunities for these players, maybe towards end of July, August. But for now, it's a bit too early. All I'm pretty sure is that I think Aubameyang will go to Saudi. I don't think he'll go to Spain. I don't think Barcelona are actively pushing. I don't think Atletico Madrid are keen on him. I saw Galatasaray are interested, but I know I feel my feeling is he goes to Saudi.
There was something that we turned down an offer from Galatasaray, wasn't there? I didn't really read that in detail, though. What was that, a loan offer? I assume. Otherwise, why would we have rejected it?
I have no idea. No idea.
Pies, do you know of any chance? I'm sure you would have seen that report.
Of what, bro?
That we apparently turned down some sort of report from Galatasaray for offer from Galatasaray for Aubameyang.
Yeah, it was Matt Law, but he sort of intimated or hinted that it was a loan, I think, because he said Chelsea is still hoping to get money for him. So I reckon it was a loan offer. It was rejected, apparently.
There you go. No, fair play. It's an interesting one, though, because for me, and I want to take it with that, you weren't really... There's not really anything concrete about any of those players that I just mentioned, whether it's Chalobah or Hudson-Odoi or Gallagher. But do you still see many of them staying, though? Like, realistically, like, for example, Callum, right? Pulisic, we expect to leave. Ziyech has already left. And then, like I was talking about, then who are our wingers? Is there any chance that Callum is going to stay as that backup winger for a season? Or, like, what do you expect to happen with those? And maybe this is more like your gut feeling rather than actual knowledge, but still, what do you think will happen with those guys?
I don't think Hudson-Odoi has a future at Chelsea, to be honest, because I remember last year we were on this stream and I was talking about a potential swap deal. If you remember that, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
and I couldn't quite say at the time, but they tried to swap Timo Werner and Hudson-Odoi in a Christopher Nkunku swap deal in the summer, which tells you everything you need to know about Hudson-Odoi's future at Chelsea, in my opinion.
And that was before a dreadful loan at Leverkusen, so it can't exactly, his stakes can't exactly have gone up, can they? That is
exactly
part of the issue.
Exactly. But who knows? A new coach comes in, anything can happen. But I think he'll depart. There's been interest from Saudi, I read, but I don't think the players, I don't think they've really spoken. I don't think the players' side of really know too much about it at the moment. I think he'd probably prefer to stay in Europe, but we'll see. Money talks, so we'll see.
There you go. Money does talk. They did apparently already receive 2 offers from Saudi Arabia, didn't he? But it seems to have not accepted them. So I don't know what exactly his personal plans are. One more time to touch on Gallagher quickly. Does Gallagher's future depend at all on? We'll get to him. Mason Mount, for example, if Mount, for some baffling reason at this point, ends up staying, I guess that makes Gallagher's departure a bit more likely because we have our most likely starting number 10 in Nkunku, but you'll need some sort of backup, right? Could that end up being Gallagher? For me, before going into the window, that's just my opinion now. I've always said, to me, Gallagher should be one of the first names on the list of selling, purely for the reason that comparing transfer fee that he could recoup for us compared to how much he offers us on the pitch, I thought he had the best value in him, if that makes sense, because I don't really ever want you to start. I think he's a useful player to bring off the bench, but bench players don't usually bring you 40, 45 million. And apparently in January, obviously, we got that 45 million offer from Everton, which he said no to. Has the interest in him changed drastically since January? Or is the problem that there's still clubs of the Everton, of the West Ham level where he doesn't really want to go to?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Pochettino has in plan for him. I think it will be a case of if an offer comes in, they'll discuss it, they'll weigh up all options and see what's best for Gallagher. Obviously, in January it's a bit more difficult because it's no one really wants to sell in January because it's just a difficult month. It's January. It's in the middle of the season. It's difficult to do deals, as we saw with Enzo, but obviously we got that over the line. But we got a big summer now. So there's a lot of months. There's a lot of weeks. it'd be an opportunity to explore all conditions for Gallagher and see what's best for him. But at the moment, everything's open. Pochettino hasn't even walked in the building yet. He hasn't spoken to the players, so it's a bit difficult to say at the minute. But like I said, depending on the offers, I think they'll weigh up everything for sure.
There you go. It does make sense, to be fair. It's just a difficult one. Like I say, obviously, if Havertz and or Mount hadn't been sold, I'm sure that we would have tried to get rid of Gallagher sooner in the window. But I guess now that those moves have happened, Chelsea are like, all right, let's just see what happens. We're not in desperate need for him to leave, I suppose. Interesting report from yesterday that I'd like to bring up, and I hope you don't mind, Nathan, because it's from Matt Law, which I found interesting because obviously it's in kind of, to some extent, also your land of expertise, shall we say, with obviously being used to do with Italy. I quickly want to get Pice's thoughts on it before I get you involved. Pice, you reported this yesterday, obviously, from Matt Law. What do you make of this? Because this is kind of, I struggle with this one. Because on the one hand, obviously, I want us to get rid of Lukaku as badly as possible. But at the same time, I'm still not fully sold on Vlahovic. Now, if this was a direct swap, sure. Great. But it won't be a direct swap. Let's be honest now. Apparently, and Nathan can confirm or deny that in a second, but I've read that Juve want like up to 80, 90 million euros for Vlahovic. So no one values Lukaku anywhere near that, right? So then we give them Lukaku and probably still have to pay like 50 odd million. And I'm sorry, I just don't think Vlahovic has done enough since leaving Fiorentina to justify that by any stretch of the imagination. And I also personally still think he's just the Serbian Lukaku. Both tall, both quick on long distance, both have their issues with the first 5 yards, both quite heavily left-footed, but both as they were younger, not that good in the air. Lukaku's already developed it. Vlahovic, not as much. He's not bad, but considering how big he is, I think he should be better, if that makes sense. I'm not sold on it. Where do you stand on this one? I understand the whole kill two birds with one stone, but I don't know, man. I'm not sure if I'm too happy with Vlahovic.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because I don't know whether this was, I put it out there, but I don't know whether this was just like a hypothetical or an actual interest. But it was in his transfer report. So, I mean, there must be something there. And I've said in the past, some of the directors do like Vlahovic and they rate him, some of the scouts as well. So I think it's one to keep an eye on. I think the thing is with Vlahovic is like, if we're going to get another striker, which we might not, but if we do, I highly doubt it will be Osimhen. Because he's just ridiculously expensive. And then if you go a level down below that, you then have like Lautaro or Vlahovic, probably, Tony's banned. Like, who else out there is there really? So I think he's one of the options for sure. But I don't know. This hypothetical tweet here, maybe a bit of info. Like, I don't think Lukaku is going to go to Juventus anyway. So we may buy Vlahovic, but I don't think it will have anything to do with Lukaku's future.
Fair dues, Nathan. I'll bring you in here. And rather than purely focusing on what Matt Law said here, that maybe killed two birds with one stone, maybe we'll just open the whole Lukaku story up a bit in a bit more detail, I guess. What is the situation there? Chelsea just want to get rid. Chelsea refuse to accept any loans other than potentially with obligation. But Inter can't afford anything else, and he doesn't want anything else. So then what do we do?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting situation. It's again, it could be a situation where Pochettino even has a word with him and say, "I want you here." Who knows? Because I was told by one source that Pochettino would be keen on working with Lukaku, but I don't think he wants to be there. Chelsea, are not accepting a loan, which Inter have obviously offered. They offered that. And Koulibaly at the same time when they both made loan offers, but Chelsea both said no. But there's also at the same time they're talking about moving on Brozovic to Saudi, so they might use that money, recoup that money, and use it for Lukaku potentially. Again, like Pice said, I don't think Lukaku will go to Juventus. If he goes to Italy, he goes to Inter. And on Vlahovic, I don't think there's really too much advance on Chelsea's side, but because I was told that at least a couple of directors are not too keen on him. But again, like I said, there's not many options on the striker list that are talked about because again they're priced out or yeah, it's simply just not possible this window, or they want to stay. It's difficult. It might just come down to going down the list and seeing what's available. But
that's the issue, isn't it? Like and I in general have absolutely no problem with Nicolas Jackson. I just don't fully understand why him, because you have him, the type that he is already in Broja. Surely figure out first, do we want a proper big name striker or not, before you make a decision on Jackson. But we'll get to Jackson in more detail in a second. I understand that our clubs were interested, so we kind of felt like we had to move quickly. But two questions. First of all, on Vlahovic, would you agree that if anyone was to get Vlahovic from Juve, it would take around 80 to 90 million euros, or do you think he will be available for cheaper than that?
I think a deal could be done for cheaper than that. I think 80, 90 million is just part of negotiations. Clubs putting big prices on big players, and hopefully they fall into the trap of paying that money. I think, especially if Italian sides, they're always in need of money. I think if Chelsea, say if an offer came in for 60, 65, I think they'd probably consider something like that. But, Bayern Munich are interested in Vlahovic, but they've got Harry Kane as their number one target at the moment. So it might just be a domino effect. See what happens with Harry Kane. They could go with, and they could push with Vlahovic if Harry Kane doesn't go through. But for now, I don't think the directors are too keen on him. But like I said, it might just be a one where you go down the list and see what's available. Because Osimhen, I think, is too expensive. But who knows, with the sales, it might be something Chelsea explore in August or something like this. But dealing with De Laurentiis is not easy, especially as the months tick by. You won't want to lose Osimhen in the last days of the window or last weeks. So it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to touch on Osimhen in a second. Just quickly on to finish Lukaku bit off. What kind of money are Chelsea looking to get on a permanent transfer for Lukaku? Like, what would they be willing to accept, to your knowledge?
Probably about 50 million euros, maybe a bit less. Who knows? I know it's a massive loss on Chelsea's part, but it's something Chelsea just have to accept now and move on. It was one of those deals that it could have worked out, but it didn't for reasons we know, which I don't think entirely is the club's fault, because you can't control a player who just threw the club under the bus, right? That's what he did, and I think it's just best all parties move on as soon as possible. But
exactly.
Another
Especially
loan
is the main issue, isn't it?
Exactly. It's no good if Chelsea get another loan, and there's time in this window. It's not January. There's time in this window, so I think there'll be a chance where Inter come back, and
they have already lost
Lukaku.
So they kind of need someone.
They got Thuram, but they do need Lukaku, and I think it'll be something they explore, because he's not, Lukaku isn't keen on the Saudi move. So again, we'll just have to see what happens with Inter's market and how they progress with the market, and go from there, really.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, the whole loan thing that we refused, that was totally understandable, because Inter would probably ask for us to pay half the wages again. I'm sure if someone made a loan offer willing to take all of Lukaku's wages, I'm sure then we'd be much more open to another loan in that scenario. But the problem is none of these clubs are going to pay him 350k, are they? Or 325, whatever exactly he's on. Someone in the chat said PSG are pushing on Osimhen. If Osimhen is going anywhere, is PSG at the moment the most likely destination? Because Napoli does seem a little bit all over the shop. Obviously, Spalletti just left. Then they got this new guy, forgot his name again, but not exactly the biggest name, but you're like, yeah, you're going to defend the title here. Also, De Laurentiis has stated that he won't let African players leave for AFCON, which is coming up next season. So is there not a scenario where Osimhen could end up pushing for a move quite heavily? And if Bayern get Kane, even if they don't get Kane, they might get Vlahovic. But Osimhen pushes, again, I don't really think it's likely either, because I just think he'll be too expensive to get out of Napoli and to get out of De Laurentiis' hands. But I just really don't see him wanting to stay there. Like I say, if De Laurentiis doesn't let him go on AFCON, he's most certainly not going to be happy with that. Do you know what I mean? So, he's done all he can. The likelihood of them repeating what they did last season, the likelihood of them doing super well in the Champions League are probably quite slim. So just purely because of everything that's happened, maybe I'm underestimating their new coach. It might well be the case. But I don't know. I just feel like, and it might not be us, but I just feel like Osimhen will end up going somewhere. So do you see PSG as a valid option? Because if it's not PSG, I don't who else is going to buy him, right? I mean, Madrid, I guess. If Mbappe doesn't happen anything this summer, I suppose they need a striker. But, I'm just thinking if he wants to leave and he's too expensive for everyone, won't that at the end lower the fee? Because if there's a lot of clubs interested that can all afford it, sure, they can ask 150 million. But if no one's willing to pay it, but he's wanting to go, won't that lower the fee by the end of the window?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation because, he stated, hasn't he, he wants to play in the Premier League. But Chelsea's position now, he's too expensive. But who knows, with player sales, Chelsea might, revisit the situation and try maybe even possibly do a swap deal or, something like that. Who knows? I think, to answer your question, I think PSG are probably the most likely of options.
Also, if Mbappe stays or only if Mbappe leaves?
I think it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Okay. I don't think it matters. But again, they haven't got. They're about to get a new coach, but again, he hasn't walked through the door yet, so it's hard to understand what he exactly wants and stuff like this. So again, the coach will obviously play a massive part in negotiations. Obviously, Man U are struggling with their situation with financially, and they've been registered with interest in him, but again, the money kind of prices them out, I think, unless they get big player sales. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what happens. I think it'll be something, if it's going to happen, it will happen August time. Probably, if you remember Chelsea's Lukaku to Chelsea, it happened around, I think it was August time. Yeah. It might be kind of something like that during that time, Inter came to accepted Chelsea's offer when they were saying, no, he's not for sale. It might be something like that with Napoli, that they put their hands up and say, fine, we'll do a deal.
It might be.
If they get a replacement, then, we'll just have to see how the market goes. It's very predictable and anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Chelsea would like to do deals, I'm sure, as soon as possible in the window rather than waiting too long. But sometimes it is just what it is, and you can't control everybody else. So at some point, you just have to abide by, the timeframes that others set if you're trying to buy players from them. Shout out Charlie, by the way. But like he says, over 350 people watching, only 60 likes. Ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button for me right now, and also subscribe. Something, Nathan, that I would like to bring up, Austin said it here in a comment, said, anyone else concerned that Poch wants Lautaro Martinez? Seems like an average player, bad decision, blah, blah. I've seen this from Felix Johnson. I'm not sure if anybody else has said that Poch so badly wants Lautaro. Can you at all confirm that? Have you heard anything in that realm that Poch wants Lautaro Martinez and that, he's a target for him?
Yeah, I know the club want him. I know the club like him. Okay. But also Pochettino has probably came out and said he likes Lautaro. He thinks he's one of the best in the world. So it's publicly known he likes Lautaro. So I think, it could be a move Chelsea explore. Again, it might be something that happens in August. Who knows? But, he's happy and he's happy in Milan. But again, if an offer comes in, who knows what happens? But I have a feeling he'll probably speak to Lukaku and say, "Oh, don't go here, stay with me." I think it even might depend on what happens to Lukaku. If he comes back to Milan, to Inter, he might stay. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's definitely a player Chelsea and Poch like for sure.
If I asked you now, and again, this is not you knowing, I'm well aware, this is more gut feeling or guessing, but if you had to guess which bigger name striker than Nicolas Jackson Chelsea would end up signing, who would you put your money on?
I'll go for Lautaro because I know Chelsea really like him and Poch likes him. So if both like him, it makes sense for Chelsea to push for him. And Chelsea have got the financial power over Inter. So yeah, I think Chelsea and Lautaro.
I mean, I already don't
could be
understand it
possible.
why we're not doing it with Onana, because they are so strapped for cash and they want players. So surely us wanting players from them and them wanting Lukaku from us, surely there needs to be some sort of resolve and solution to this whole situation where, you know, they take some money off the fee for someone else and we give them Lukaku on a permanent deal. Surely there has to be something that can be done, no?
Yeah, you think so. You'd think so. Plus, there's been talk of Chalobah and Inter, and obviously there's been talk of Aspi and Inter. So you think so, but it might be something they explore at a different date, because there is quite a lot of going on from Chelsea and Inter side from both parties. So it's, you know, they just have to take one step at a time and go from there.
There you go, Pies. To bring you back in, sorry, I don't bring you in enough. What's your state of mind in terms of the strikers? Because, and I've been in a similar state of mind for weeks and months now, where I'm like, I don't know who I want. I don't really have a specific player in mind where I'm like, yeah, I think you'd be great. I have my doubts about Osimhen because I think his biggest strengths is running in behind. Sure, heading, but running in behind, that doesn't happen at Chelsea. So what's the point? Lautaro, he works best in the front two. We're probably not going to play a front two. So why is that one useful? Vlahovic is just another Lukaku to me. Less good, though, in my opinion. Obviously younger, therefore can become better still. But as of right now, I would say Lukaku is better than Vlahovic, personally. So where do you stand on it? Especially if Nathan says Lautaro is the most likely. I can see a way and a world in which Lautaro does actually, in a weird way, work for us. Because we've tried to get like goal machines a few times and they never really turn out to be particularly useful. So I guess if you get a player that's not known to be a goal machine, then the pressure on the goal numbers is not as high. So maybe that from that kind of perspective, it can work. And if the manager believes in it and the directors believe in it, that is, I guess, a good basis to start with. But like I say, I don't really know about any of them that I'd be fully buzzing with any of them. So Nathan says Lautaro, you said for a few while you feel like it's going to end up being Vlahovic. Now, Nathan has told you, I'm not sure if you knew that already before, that our directors are not that big of a fan. I'm not sure if that changes your mind on who you think is going to be most likely. But imagine Nathan's right and it is Lautaro. Would you be happy with that? Would you be annoyed with that? Where would you stand then? Pice, that was for you. You're muted.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'd rather sign Mitrovic than Lautaro Martinez, if I'm being completely honest. I don't want Lautaro here at all. I don't rate him. I think he'd be a massive waste of money. I think he'd cost like 80 million plus. I think he's got good link up. I don't think he suits the Premier League. There's no two striker formations that will play. He disappears in literally every single big game. So I'm not a fan of him, to be honest with you. I could see him working well with Nkunku, but you know, I think there'll be limits. Thing is with me, if we sign Lautaro, I just know like our fans can be like, right, we spent 80 million in him, but he's still not the striker to win us the league, right? So
yeah,
I know
what's the point, you know?
Yeah, I know we're not going to win the league next season, but I'm just saying, like, I just feel like he's like it's hard to describe it. Like he's a piece in a winning team, or like he's a piece you add to a team that's already really good. So I don't think he's like that guy to spearhead our attack personally. So yeah, I'd much rather go down the cheaper route if it was between, you know, Lautaro and nothing. You know, I'd just go and get Mitrovic or something until better strikers come on the market. But
although you never know with Fulham, they apparently asked for 90 million for Palinha, so God knows what they're going to ask for Mitrovic.
Maybe. But I'm sure there's someone out there we can sign, like, you know how we signed Giroud and he did quite well for us. So in terms of goals, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm quite intrigued about Vlahovic, to be honest with you. I see some of your points, but I don't really judge players under Allegri, to be honest. I think he's one of the most defensive managers in the world. And yeah, I think he's got really good box movement and he's a really good finisher. So I would like Vlahovic if we were to sign someone. Obviously, Osimhen would give me the most like sort of dopamine hype, but yeah, I'd say Vlahovic. I think he's young. I think he's got room to improve, but I also think I just think he's a Chelsea striker, really. I don't really know how to explain it, but I think his attributes like suit the Premier League. So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll go with Vlahovic.
Which other currently good striker in the Prem is even anything close to what Vlahovic is? Because I wouldn't say Haaland is. I know they're both physically big, and left-footed, but that's when you're done with the similarities, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say Haaland. I would say Haaland stylistically similar. But obviously Haaland's a bit quicker, very quick to be fair. But yeah.
I guess I hear it. Go on, sorry.
And also, like, part of my opinion, obviously based on some of my writers for my website really like him, and they're like tactical nerds, so in a nice way. So I'll stick with them for now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, it's just like, because people obviously talk about how bad Juve have been and everything. I think people forget that without that points deduction, they would have come third just behind Lazio. So, like, sure, compared to what is expected of Juve, not great. But in terms of the points total, sure, everyone's crazy far away from Napoli. But they're not as bad as the table looks if you just go look it up now. And considering that, I know I get your point with Allegri, but there's been worse players that have done much better under Allegri. Worse strikers that have, like Morata did better under Allegri than Vlahovic did. What does that tell you? Do you know what I mean? If even Morata can do more, like, you know, it just concerns me. I mean, Vic says here, Lautaro is a horrendous player. Did you watch him at the World Cup? Did you watch Vlahovic? No, he was benched by Mitrovic. Do you know what I mean? So, like, yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? But I do want to touch on Nicolas Jackson. Obviously, we're not going to do, as Nathan is here today, we're not going to do the whole tactical deep dive on him today. But I guess from a fan's perspective, also your opinion, Nathan, do you think good signing at all? But also in terms of details, was it a case of we moved this quickly to fend off other interests? Or were we just that convinced by him that we were like, yeah, get him now, even though we were apparently going to spend June selling players rather than buying some?
Yeah, no, I think overall, I think it's a good signing. I can't lie, I haven't really watched too much of him, and I'm not someone to, I'm not someone to base someone off highlights, because I think if you put a highlight package together, I think anyone looks good. But he looks like he's got the attributes. You know, his stats are pretty impressive. He's young. You know, he's athletic. He's tall. I think he has, you know, the attributes for sure for a Premier League striker. But it has to be a situation where Chelsea don't put too much pressure on him, because, you know, he's still young. He can't be that guy that leads the line every week and has the pressure on his shoulders. But overall, I think it's a good signing. You know, it was something Chelsea did pretty quickly, and Chelsea got a good deal for him. I think they paid the release clause.
The release clause, right, to get better payment terms.
Yeah, just over. I think it's. I was told like 35 million, but I was also told there's a bit of inflation involved, so I'm not exactly sure what that is. But yeah, just over the release clause, but also there's some inflation involved, I was told. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
I don't really know how inflation can be involved in a deal right now, unless it's to do with payment terms that, because of inflation, the next payment terms will be bigger. Maybe that's the idea.
Could be. I was kind of questioning when I was told the same. When I was told what I was told, I was kind of like you there. But yeah, that's what I was told.
No, fair play. The only thing I did read, it was on Twitter, so I don't know if I should give it all the attention in the world, but it was a tactical deep dive on Nicolas Jackson. The only thing that's slightly put me off is that I have now learned is that he is basically used to be a winger. People called him the next Neymar, and now he's a striker. So basically, we're just doing another Havertz where we turn a player into a striker who's not a striker. And then after 3 years, when he doesn't score enough goals, we complain about and say, he's played out of position, or he only needs to learn how to be a striker. And I'm like, no, give me a striker that actually knows how to be a striker, not needs to learn it. You know, that's the whole point. Let him be somewhere else while he learns it. So it's, he may be amazing, but did I heard that he used to be a winger, but he's now learning how to be a real good striker? I'm like, that's great. But then we shouldn't have signed you yet if you're still learning that, because we have Broja already for that. Who knows how to be a striker already? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know he's just injured and everything, but I still question that a little bit. We'll go into more deep dive on that Nicolas Jackson topic in the next stream. But just quickly on a thought, maybe of mine, I'm sure plenty of other people have thought of it before. Obviously, Tony is banned until, January? Is there a world in which you can imagine Chelsea just going with Jackson and Broja, and maybe, I guess, Fofana and Nkunku as a backup option until January, and then sign Tony? And then have made up their mind, okay, what do we do with Broja? Does he get a loan? Does he get a permanent sale? Or then not need it, I guess, if Broja is amazing all of a sudden. Is that at all a thought process that you think Chelsea could be going through? With okay, we signed Jackson now, so we have a striker. Even if he's not maybe quite as good as we want our main striker to be, just give him a chance. And in 6 months, we have that Tony option.
I mean, it could be an option. It could be an option. I know Chelsea liked him, but I think it'd be difficult for Tony to find a new club, because I think the whole situation of him and the gambling might have thrown clubs off.
Which would make him cheaper, is my thinking.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think it. I think it wouldn't please too many people in that aspect of the gambling. But also, he is a good player. But then again, we wouldn't have played since, what was it, May? So it's a long time. Yeah. But like you said, it'd be cheaper. But then would Brentford want to sell Tony in January? I'm not so sure.
No, maybe not.
But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? The whole Tony thing. Also, we are most likely apparently going to have Stake as our sponsorship, even though, I mean, they've only got 3 more days until they're probably announcing it. So we'll find out then, I guess, on July 1st. Unless it's not Stake, then it might take longer because they're negotiating something else. But if it is Stake, I'm sure we'll find out in July 1st. I'm not sure if Tony would want to come to a club that's a betting sponsor. I'm not sure if that would go so well for his image after that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that wouldn't go too down. No,
maybe not.
No.
Unless he just thinks it's banter, and that would be his main reason to have it as betting shirt sponsor. I don't really know. Pies, Nicolas Jackson. Obviously, we've touched on him before. We were fast in with him, and then it became a bit more serious. And haven't really spoken in too much detail about him since then. You read the same thread as I have, I think, since then. Does the fact that he was a winger and is turning into a striker also, not concern is too strong of a word, but also put a little bit of doubt in your mind? Because I'm like, not another player who's changing position. Like, get me players that have been playing the same position since they're at least 16 or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I did read that thread, and there was a lot of nice intangibles there. Like, I think his hold-up play looks really, really good. The way he drops deep to pick up the ball is almost like he almost does that as the main thing he does, and I think that can benefit Nkunku running off him if he does play. And also like our wide players, but at the same time, I think some of those clips I saw where he just doesn't really know quite yet how to attack the box definitely worried me. And I was thinking, well, Broja knows how to attack the box because he's an out-and-out striker, and he just seems to have that right. Broja always seems to make the right runs in the box, whereas Jackson was kind of like a little bit sort of in those clips, he was sort of hesitant, or like he'd make the wrong movements. There's a couple of times like where he drop the pick up the ball, play it back, and then he wouldn't run straight off. He'd sort of hesitate and not make that run, and then the player couldn't then play the through ball. So yeah, it does worry me a little bit, because like I think if we just go into the season, Broja, Jackson, like I know Nkunku can play up there, but it's not enough. Like I don't think it's enough, honestly. Yeah, I think they're both sort of very raw. We don't know how Nkunku is going to adapt to the Premier League as well. So I think it's a massive risk, but I do honestly think Pochettino will look at these guys in pre-season, and then a decision will be made. So, yeah, but even that in itself is dangerous, because friendlies, I know we're playing Premier League opposition, which is actually decent test for these guys, but
and Dortmund now.
Yeah, Dortmund, Brighton, Newcastle, I think we have. Obviously that game against Wrexham's a bit irrelevant, but the other sides are good to test these guys. So I think, give them good minutes in those games, and we'll see how good they are.
Yeah, I think Idrizo here makes an interesting point. I guess if we do sign another striker and we still don't let go of Broja, but we don't sign a winger, maybe that is one to talk about. I will ask Nathan in a minute if Chelsea are interested in looking at attacking mids or wide players in that sense. But what I want to talk about before that, Nathan, is the goalkeeping situation, because there's another position where there's been a few differing reports where, a lot of reports are now saying Pochettino is happy to go into the season with Kepa as number 1. But obviously there's a difference in him being happy with doing that and ideally still wanting someone else. Now I can't remember where the report came from, Pies would know, that we apparently would try to go for Maignan anyway and see how that one goes, at least approach them, see how it goes. There's also been some talk about Diogo Costa, but he's going to go 75 million. Really? We're going to do that for him? Have you seen him at the World Cup? My guy forgot there was a player behind him. Maybe that never happens to him again because it's happened. But do you know what I mean? Vision, not it. But where exactly do you stand? But what is your level of information on the goalkeeping situation at Chelsea? Like, do you expect us to? And when I say go into the season, I mean by the time the transfer window is finished, with Kepa as number one, or do you think we're going to sign like a number one goalie, whether that ends up being Maignan or Diego Costa or someone else? Could Onana be back on the cards? I feel like no at this point, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm told Chelsea want a new goalkeeper. They want a new goalkeeper. The club are looking at goalkeeper options, but I don't think it's too much of a priority at the moment because Chelsea have got so much to do. Now, I'm not saying Chelsea won't sign a goalkeeper, but with this transfer window, you have to take it step by step and sort your priorities out first. Some might say a goalkeeper should be a priority, but Chelsea have to address the midfield. Chelsea have to address the striking position. Chelsea lacked goals last season, and you can look at it that Chelsea got quite a lot of clean sheets. What was it, third or fourth in most clean sheets in the Premier League? Or I might be wrong, but they were high up there. So I think it's just a step by taking it one step at a time, and it might be something Chelsea explore later on. With Onana. Again, I'm pretty surprised Chelsea haven't, looked at that more. But again, I think it's the cost more than anything. Like Maignan, Chelsea view him as too expensive at the moment. But it might be, these players might be looked at more as the window goes on. With Chelsea have, got money, made some sales, and then it could be something Chelsea explore then.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, Pice, we've talked about the goalie situation countless of times, haven't we? But what I find the most weird is that it just keeps changing. Like the kind of reporting keeps changing. First, we're like, oh yeah, we're getting rid of Mendy and Kepa. Then all of a sudden, Kepa is staying. Then all of a sudden, we're absolutely fine him being the first choice goalkeeper. We might buy a backup like Mamadashvili from Valencia, who can potentially develop into being the number one. But then we also have Slonina, who we just signed last year. So what's the point in him then? But then now we're also back to the reports of, we might look at Maignan, but he's a bit expensive. But we're also looking at Diego Costa, who's at least equally as expensive. So I'm like, well, what do you want? I get what Nathan's saying is obviously an important and a good point in terms of we have our priorities and we're working our list through that priorities. And maybe if by the time we hit August, we've sorted other things out and we still have some cash left, maybe we will then kind of go for it a bit harder. But I still find kind of the just mixed reports just odd. Like, just make a decision. Will it be kept by the first choice next season or not? Just just don't faff about.
I mean,
that's the whole. Oh, sorry.
I was going to go to Pice, but you could jump in. As well.
Sorry. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, no, I think on goalkeeper it's going to be really interesting. I think, apparently Tony Jimenez, who's the new goalkeeper coach, I think apparently he's friends with Kepa, so maybe that plays into the whole decision with Poch wanting to keep Kepa as his number one. But for me, I've made this clear. I don't really want Kepa next season. I don't mind him as a backup, but I think starting you can definitely upgrade. And I'm not sure, but I was reading some reports earlier from Portugal that Porto have to raise money for financial, like that by Friday or something. I read that earlier, and that Chelsea and Man U were in contact for Costa. So maybe one for you to check after the stream, Nathan. But I think it could be interesting, getting a new number one like Costa and Onana. But what puts me off is I feel like if we was going to get a number one, we would have already got Onana by now and had those talks with Inter Milan. Logical wise, I just think in my head, why wouldn't you do something in that negotiation? Literally, they want Chalobah, they want Lukaku, they want, they wanted Koulibaly. So it's just strange to me why we didn't try and do something there. But I don't know. I'm waiting to see on this goalkeeper thing because a lot of people are saying different things at the moment. Some people say, Pochettino's happy with Kepa, and some people say, Chelsea want a new number one. So. Yeah, it'd be interesting. The one thing I do know, though, is obviously Kepa's very hard to get off the books because he's got very high wages. So, finding a permanent suitor anyway, if we was to try and get rid of him, would be really difficult.
Yeah, it would be. That is obviously part of the issue and why Mendy has left already. Nathan, I think it's about time we start talking about, I guess, the big news that's happening at the moment. Mason Mount. I asked Pies to message you before we went live to like if there's anything interesting that like what shall I put in the thumbnail and title basically. And you said just more Mount drama. Obviously this is what you released on Saturday. What exactly is the situation with Mason Mount right now? Because I just think it's a whole big mess.
Yeah, you pretty much just summed it up there. A whole big mess. Yeah, it is, isn't it? People are confused. I mean, I think people kind of took my tweet out of context, and they don't, they see things as black and white. Some people and just took out of context, basically.
As Twitter does.
yeah, as I've learned. Basically Mount doesn't have an offer, right? He doesn't have an offer on the table. The last one was February.
Yeah.
A 1-year contract.
That was a 1-year deal, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do we know the wage offer in that 1-year deal? Is that the 200K that some people have been spoken about?
No idea on the wage offer, but all I know it was a 1-year contract extension. But they, Chelsea are looking at it and thinking it buys them more time for them to potentially, sell. They don't have the pressure of selling ASAP. Plus, they can make more money for him. So, but you can also look at from Chelsea's side saying, we'll give you a contract now, then maybe add more, go back to it later on, and maybe add more years onto your contract. Who knows? But they gave him a 1-year contract extension. Mount wasn't happy with that. He was pretty upset with it, and there hasn't been anything since. There hasn't been a new contract offer since, which tells you everything you need to know that Chelsea wants to sell him.
Exactly. Has Mount or his team, and I guess that's kind of half of the issue as well. Obviously, his dad being one of his agents, but then that PR agency, whatever that he, got signed to or signed up with in what was it, April or whatever. Have they chased Chelsea? Like, are we getting an offer, or are they since February just sat there doing nothing until they started to, I guess, talk to Man United? But did they ask Chelsea for something, or is that why Chelsea are of the opinion Mount doesn't want to stay anyway because Mount declined the last offer and hasn't said anything since? And I'm not trying to side with either side here. I'm just, because my perspective is you see some journalists, some outlets that come out with clearly one side of the story, and then some others come out with clearly another side of the story, which tells me that the reality is just somewhere in between. And that, but not that either of those reports are false, but just that both sides have a different version of the truth that they believe in. But the reality is a mix of both their truths in my mind. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out how we got here. Because even when you go further back in the timescale, right, there's obviously these statements, I'm not sure if you confirm that too, of a verbal agreement as such between Mount and Bowley before the World Cup. Mount almost thinking he's going to sign that after World Cup, but then he didn't. And then they still only took that offer off the table in January. So what happened between the end of the World Cup and January? What if he had planned to sign it then? I don't know. But also, there was reports earlier in the year, and I'm not exactly sure when exactly they came out, but early in the football season year, that we were offering him a very long contract, like we did with Reece, like we did with a lot of the new signings, and he wasn't happy with that part. So, but if there was a verbal agreement, did they ever resolve that part, or was that not actually ever an issue for Mount, the length of contract, like it being too long?
The length of contract. I mean, preferably he's not going to want to sign I don't think he's going to want. For sure, I don't know for sure if he wants to sign a 6 or 7 year contract. But from his perspective, I think if he signed how old is Mount now? 24, right? I think. Yeah. So if he signed a 6 year, 7 year contract, it takes him past 30, doesn't it? So for me, it makes sense from his side. Maybe a 4 or 5 year deal. But money again has never really been an issue for Mount. It's and then like you said, they were close to basically had everything in place for after the World Cup to sign. But again, Chelsea pulled that deal off the table, and then they offered a 1 year deal, and then obviously Mount wasn't happy with that, so nothing happened. And then fast forward now, and there's been no offer, and obviously Mount's got to make a decision. I mean, he never wanted to leave, never asked to leave, right? He never asked to leave. But if the club don't want him, he's got to make a choice on his future. And, he has, he doesn't really have much of a choice but to push to go to Man U. So yeah, it's true he wants to go to Man U, but he feels forced out. He doesn't feel wanted. So he can't do much, can he? Because when there's no contract offer on the table and Chelsea want to sell him, he can't really do much. So he's only got one option, but to want to join Man U. But now with Man U, they were insisting that was their final offer. That was, final bid. We'll leave it there. Now, one thing that can change is if Chelsea lower their, demands a bit, or maybe they add something to the contract, like how they do the contract, because I think they want to do it over 4 installments. So, and I don't think Chelsea are overly happy with the 4 installments and how much they are paying in each installment. So the payment structure also has to be right. I think some people forget. There's some people think, it's 55 million. There's your 55 million. No, the payment structure also has to make sense for Chelsea. So, yeah. And there was a report today saying Man U haven't got, financially good good funds at the moment. So, I think it's a difficult deal to do. Mount wants, it's true. He wants to go to Man U because he has no other choice.
Yeah.
But, he never wanted to leave. But again, he has no choice, like I just said. So I think people are just a bit confused. But,
I have two kind of questions that maybe can clear things up a little bit for people. Firstly, obviously, we went from Bowley doing the negotiations to Winstanley doing the negotiations as the World Cup happened. But because Bowley clearly did the negotiations and had a verbal agreement. So why was Bowley just accepting of, okay, if Winstanley is taking that off the table, I'm fine with that? Or is it a pure case of the directors were like, yeah, actually, we don't think Mount's that good. Therefore, we don't think we should offer him what you offered him in September. Like, how did that come about? And how was Bowley? Because the way Bowley has been so far, and even now, every now and again, he seems to get involved in things. Obviously, he was the guy out in Saudi Arabia. It wasn't Winstanley, was it? So he's clearly still involved to some capacity, him and Iqbal, So it just surprises me that he had a verbal agreement. Then the people he employed went back on that agreement, and he's just fine with that. That to me, that's just confusing. Like, why would he be okay with that?
Yeah, it is confusing
to know that, but I'm just.
Can I just answer this one quickly? I think this is very simple, right? Bowley, if Winstanley saw that contract, viewed that contract, and he was like, I don't agree with the numbers here, and they offered him something less, which is what I understand happened. Bowley's a businessman; he's going to be okay with saving money, right? So, I think that's what happened. Personally,
would you put it that way too, Nathan?
Yeah, could be the case. Could be the case. I don't know for sure, but it makes sense.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And the other question that I'd have on this is, okay, Mount feels like he's kind of getting pushed out. At least he's not getting a new proper contract. But if we're talking in the sense of he needs to take care of his own future, letting his contract run out is for him taking care of his own future. That makes his options even bigger, right? Like, he will have even more options if he was to leave as a free agent next summer. Now, obviously, Chelsea don't want that, but Chelsea also don't want to keep him. So that's kind of Chelsea's problem in his mind, right? That's at least my logic. Because what I've questioned for the whole last few weeks is, why would you want to go to United in the middle of a takeover? Like, of an ownership takeover? That's just, to me, baffling. Because so even if he wants United, and even if he's like, okay, the club clearly don't want me to stay, why would he not just wait that year, right? Like, so many players, first of all, you get a bigger sign-on fee, you get bigger wages if you leave as a free agent, but also by then their takeover will be completed. So by then he will know whether that's at least looks like it's gone well or hasn't gone well. I just think right now it's just I find any player odd that joins Man United right now. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I get you. It does make sense for Mount to possibly run down his contract, because he'd probably have all teams in for him next summer. Yeah. Or, I mean, for example, Bayern Munich, they'd be interested in a deal for Mason Mount next summer. I know that already for a fact. yeah, it's something, that makes sense for Mount, but he's just a bit frustrated with the situation of how it's all been, gone about, and yeah, we'll just see what happens. But yeah, it needs to be sorted as soon as possible, because first of all, Pochettino hasn't spoken to Mount.
Do you
we'll
know
see,
why?
we'll see.
Is that on his own accord that he hasn't spoken to him? Because obviously we had the reports a few weeks ago that Poch really wants to keep Mount. There was also a few people talking about how Poch is pushing for Mount to stay. Exactly.
His contract officially starts from July, so I think that's when he can get involved and speak. And
okay. So now you're saying we can't officially say that he's talked to Mount because officially his contract starts on July 1st. That's why we can't say anything.
Chelsea probably think there's no point in you getting involved for now, because we handle the Mount situation. We know it more than you. Maybe it's best you don't step in just right now. Maybe when you officially start, you can kind of get the situation more.
I hear that.
But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, one last question I have on this. I guess it's two, and obviously say your piece then. Do you at all, and I'm not sure if even if you knew you would be allowed to say that or could say that, but do you at all feel that, yes, Chelsea may be pushing Mount in a certain direction, but do you also feel that his representatives, whether that's his dad, his PR agency, both, do you also feel that they're pushing him in a direction? Because, like I say, if there was a contract offer on the table in February and he said no to that, if Mount actually in an ideal world would like to stay, I would imagine if I'm a footballer and I tell my agent I would actually like to stay here, but I wasn't happy with the last contract offer, then I would get my agent to talk to the club to see if we can't come to a compromise and get an agreement done. But because nothing, apparently not even in terms of talks much, nothing has happened in February, that makes me question either, are we sure how much he really doesn't want to leave? Or, what I think is more likely, is he just being pushed by people around him to do a move? Like, again, I'm not sure how much you can say on that or how much you know on it, but is that something that could be happening at all? Because, like I say, it's just the whole thing is such a mess and so weird to me. Then, as much as people might not rate Mount, but I don't think you can say about Mount that he hasn't or doesn't care about Chelsea. So to me, it's just a weird. If he had control over this, I don't think it would have gone the way it has, I think.
Yeah. It's been a mess, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's been an absolute. I think I get the impression, if Mount doesn't join United this summer, I think he'll leave on a free. I think the relationship between the parties is broken. They were, to give him a 1-year contract extension, I think it really annoyed Mount. It kind of upset him, and it's difficult I think it's difficult for Chelsea to sit down and talk again after that. And the fact he knows Chelsea want to sell him, I think it's just, your boyhood club, for Chelsea that want to sell you to make money, and I think it's difficult for him to accept that. And I think he's got 1 year left in his contract. He'll have all options available next summer. I think it might just be that situation.
Yeah, and I hear that as well. It's just like, now you say if he does end up staying this summer, not necessarily permanently, but just this summer, I think, I don't know where, but I think Poch would use it if Mount was here, unless the club told him you're not allowed to. But that would that be the best move? I don't know, right? So that if Poch uses Mount and Mount does well, doesn't that change the whole situation, the whole landscape though? Because if Mount then does do well, the directors could be like, oh, well, actually, maybe we were a bit wrong and we should have just given him what Bowley agreed with him before the World Cup. And then if those issues are then resolved, then does he care? Or is it his people that care so much? I don't know, because if he starts playing and plays well, then the directors will be more willing to give him a longer and better paid contract, no?
Yeah, that's what some of them think. They think, if he's, like you just said, if he starts playing well, if he gets a run of games, if he gets that confidence, then everything can go ahead again. But I don't know.
You wouldn't say it's likely as of right now.
No, I wouldn't. Plus, again, it depends, because you have so many big teams in for you next summer. He'll know that, and they'll make good offers, I'm sure. We'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, it's Chelsea think if he starts playing well, that maybe something could happen, maybe new contract talks. But for now, it's a situation Chelsea want to sell him, and he feels like he's getting pushed out, which leaves him with no other option but to push to join Man U. But Chelsea want a certain amount of money, and Man U don't want to go above their offer. So again, we're stuck here in a difficult situation where it might just be a thing where he leaves on a free next summer.
Yeah, I mean, it might be. I mean, I just don't agree with this sentiment, unfortunately, because if I put myself in Mount's shoes and I was offered a 1-year deal, as I only have 1 year left on my contract, I wouldn't see that as a year to prove myself. I would see that as we would give you an extra year, so you have 2 years left on the contract, so we can sell you for more money this summer, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't give him 1 year. Because if that's the idea, prove yourself, then we could just say, prove yourself next season. If we actually wanted to keep him and it's a case of giving him the opportunity to prove himself, then you wouldn't give him maybe you'd give him a 2-year deal, but also you wouldn't give him 200K to prove himself. Because what if he then doesn't, and then doesn't prove himself to get a big wage, and then what? Then you're going to offer him a 4-year, 5-year contract on 150 again? He's obviously never going to accept that. So obviously Nathan didn't confirm on his side that it was 200K for that 1-year deal, but let's imagine it was. There's no way, in my opinion, that this is offered as a case of, you have a chance to prove yourself. I don't see it that way. I understand some people do, but I wouldn't see it that way. Pice, I'm not even sure if you want to add anything to the Mason Mount discussion, because we've discussed a lot of it, obviously, previously. You and me heard a lot of these things that now have been made public by other people, including Nathan, already. So we kind of thought about it and discussed it many times. But is there anything new for you? Like, what would you like? Is there anything else you have to add to it, to say to it?
No, I just want a resolution. I'm so bored, so tired of this saga. Honestly, it's all I've spoke about, all I've tweeted about, all I've heard about for like the last month and a half. It's just been draining, honestly. It's like we're losing Eden Hazard, but 10 times worse. Oh wait, we're not. So I think we should just get this over with. It's doing my head in. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he does leave, which of course he is. There's no way he's going to stay. I refuse to believe it now. Especially, like, it's interesting how he said, like, obviously July the 1st, Pochettino can officially start work and that sort of thing. It's kind of funny how July the 1st is also, the time where we need to decide Mason Mount's future, right? Because of the whole, financials. If you sell a player right now before July the 1st, obviously it goes pure profit on the books for this season, and the new season's account starts.
That's actually an interesting one. Can I just jump in and ask Nathan about that? Are we still in a position after all the Saudi sales and the Havertz sale and the Kovacic sale, where we are in a position where we need to sell Mount before June 30th? Or are we in a position where it doesn't really matter if it's July?
I think the latter, that it doesn't really matter exactly when. I was told a few sales would be okay. But yeah, Chelsea initially were holding up for 60 million. Now I've seen they've dropped it down to 58. But it just seems difficult for Man U to agree on this deal. I don't know. It feels so complicated and messy at the minute. It might just be best all parties
we'll compromise. There's no way he's going to stay. From everything I've heard and Nathan said, no way he's going to stay. No chance.
Do you know what? It's a very complicated situation. Probably one of the most complicated matters in a while. It's been a complete mess, isn't it? Complete mess. It's just been so hard to keep up with, and everyone's confused. And
it really is a bit of a tricky situation.
As I realised on Friday, everyone's a bit confused.
Yeah, there you go. As we are talking, Chelsea and Manchester City have, not that we didn't know it already, but Chelsea and Manchester City have confirmed that Mateo Kovacic has joined Manchester City, on a permanent deal. I'm not even going to ask you much about it, Nathan, but Pice, from your perspective, anything you want to say? Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, don't know. Just knew this was coming. Sad, to be honest. You know, my favourite player gone. I'm so fantastic. I have to find a new favourite player now. Yeah, you know, I don't know what else is there really to say. I think it's stupid selling to Man City, to be honest. But yeah, it is what it is. You know, it's probably stupid selling Mount to Man United. It's probably stupid selling Havertz to Arsenal in the end. It'll probably turn out stupid, even though I don't think it is. You know, knowing I like, he'll turn into something great now. So, yeah, I think avoid Premier League sales where possible. But then again, there's also the debate, you know, what other clubs really do have money right now. It's actually crazy how Premier League is.
To be fair, we didn't get that much money. So I feel like the money that we did get for Kova, a lot of clubs would have had that money.
I don't know, man, because otherwise I think we would have sold him abroad if there was suitors.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, maybe he didn't want to go abroad, didn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I don't think they want to sell, you know, to Premier League rivals. I think they're almost sort of the money's too good to turn down in some senses. You know, with the Havertz deal, especially.
Cover is just rated so lowly then by everyone.
No, I was talking about the Havertz deal. I think
Havertz obviously,
yeah,
but Cover, I know he only had 1 year left, but 25 million, it's not a lot, is it? Like, I don't know. It's better than that in my books. But Nathan, another topic I would like to talk about, and there might not be much news, but I'm just going to ask you if there is anything you know. Caicedo, where do we sit right now? Obviously, Fabrizio said yesterday personal terms have been agreed weeks ago, even though for the last 2 weeks he said we're nearly done. So I don't know which one it is apparently supposed to be now. But regardless, let's pretend they are agreed. But we haven't made an offer to Brighton yet. Well, some reports said we did offer 60 million, and they declined that. Some said we haven't made an offer yet. Who knows what's true? I don't anyway. Maybe you do. But are Chelsea just that confident that they would just get it done? Or why are they waiting so long to go in with the first official proper big bid?
First of all, there has been an offer, 60 million. That is true. Second of all, I think, you know, the delay of Chelsea not bidding is, again, for the player sales. But
that makes it, sorry to interrupt you, but doesn't that make it even more weird? If they already had an offer rejected, then to basically leave it a 3-2, whatever long week gap of nothing, no talks between each other, that's also weird.
Yeah. But no, there's been frequent contact between the parties.
Okay.
But it's not just Chelsea that interest. It's Arsenal, Man U, the other two. But
so you are saying Arsenal are still interested, because there has, of course, been some reports that say they've dropped their interest for Rice now. Oh.
No, they're still interested. In fact, you know, even recently they've made themselves that they're, you know, strongly interested still in Caicedo. But I assume that, again, that depends on what happens with Declan Rice. But, you know, they're still strongly interested. They've made that clear in recent days, which also makes sense with Man City, you know, stepping up their interest in Rice and have made an offer, but got rejected. But you never know. The pressure's on Arsenal now, so it makes sense for them to make contact with Brighton and his reps again to, you know, make themselves realise that, you know, they are keen on them still. They want 85 million, I think, something like this, around this, 85 million. Maybe 80 million plus add-ons could do it. Maybe 85 million plus add-ons could do it. Who knows? But something in that range, I think. All teams know the conditions on the player side, and it's just something Chelsea have to, you know, it's something we just have to see what happens, because we were told that a bid was going to happen last week and it didn't. You know, the market's very unpredictable. You know, who knows when the first bid is going to be? It could be this week. It could be next week. It could be never. Who knows?
That would be weird. If we apparently have personal terms agreed and we never make another bid, that would be odd.
That would be odd. Yeah, but see what happens with Declan Rice, I think, because I think Arsenal will go straight in there if Rice goes to Man City. But for now,
that's another thing for me, right? Where I'm like, we see this happening. What's happening with Rice and Arsenal, but now Man City. surely that in itself should make us move a bit quicker for Caicedo, unless we have some unexplained crazy confidence that we will get it. But you talk there about transfer fees. So at this point, are you expecting it to be a straight cash deal and no Colwells, no Gallagher's, no Broyas, no Chalobahs or anybody else involved?
No, I don't think it would just be a straight cash deal, around 85 million, I think. I don't think Chelsea will go that. I don't think Chelsea will go that high on their second offer. I think it'll be a process that we'll see a lot more in July, I think. But yeah, for now, no new bids. We'll just have to see how it plays out and go from there.
There you go. I mean, Paz, just quickly, do you find it odd as well, especially if we've made an offer already and we have personal terms agreed and we know what's happening with City and Rice, unless what is the woman called that was throwing out this crazy conspiracy that Arsenal Arteta called Pep, make a bid for Rice, so my owner pays more for Rice. That I found hilarious. But like, it's just like, surely the risk of not getting him should make us move quickly. And I know someone said we have to wait for July 1st. Yeah, but no, you don't. You just can agree the deal. Even if you agree the deal on June 10th, you can say the deal becomes active on July 1st. Like, you don't need to wait that long to agree the deal, though. Like, those are two different things. So I don't really understand the way. If it works out, no problem. If it backfires on us, we're going to have words.
Yeah, if it backfires on us, it will be catastrophic because I think the other midfielders on the market just...
Even Lavia is apparently going elsewhere now.
Yeah, look, Caicedo, he's got to be the one. We lost Rice. We got to get Caicedo. Honestly, it'd be a fantastic player for us. I'm sure of it. And in terms of the weight, I think I just go off what Fabrizio said, to be honest. He said we're completing all these outgoings and then we're going to start negotiations because apparently we know that it's going to be a tough negotiation. I think that's why we've laid down quite a heavy mark already. So instead of going in with 50 mil, we're going in for 60 mil. So, usually clubs, like Nathan said, probably 80, 85 mil. It's not going to take a massive sort of, jump up in price to get the deal done. But what will be difficult is like the finer things like the payment details, how many years we're going to pay it, that type of thing. So that'll be the difficult thing rather than the price, in my opinion. But we'll see. We got plenty of money from sales, and obviously if Mount goes as well, we've got even more. So I understand the weight in some senses because get everything you need to get done first, and then focus on one of your priorities, which is Caicedo, because he is the priority. Let's be honest. Like, he is the priority first this window. It's to get that partner to Enzo. I think get everything done first. Don't be distracted. Then you can just go like, I don't know, a week and a half, however long it takes, hard negotiations to try and get that deal done.
Yeah, in an ideal world, before we could fly out to pre-season, but if not, then better late than never, I guess. Last question from me. I'm not sure if Pice has anything else you would like to know. But Nathan, we spoke about Mount could leave, most likely. Well, maybe now, maybe next summer. Havertz has left already. Ziyech has left. You expect Hudson-Odoi to leave. As much as we wanted the squad clear out and we needed the squad clear out, if we clear it out that much, especially in the forward areas, Aubameyang leaving as well, do we not need to sign someone else other than just Jackson and obviously Nkunku? Because sure, okay, Gallagher can be the backup 10 if necessary. Is that ideal? I wouldn't say so, especially if Nkunku is potentially required to play up front every now and again as well. But even more so, you have Mudryk, you have Sterling, and you have Madueke. That's 3 players for essentially 2 positions. You need somebody else, like another backup, no? Is it whether that's a pure right winger, or whether it's someone that can play centrally or wide? Do you, first of all, know of Chelsea's interest in that position at all? And if you don't know of it yet, do you expect that to still come?
I haven't heard too much direct concrete stuff on that. I mean, there's been Gabri Veiga links. I don't think there's too much for now on that. I mean,
is Gabri Veiga seen as a proper 10 though? I thought it was more of an 8. I say that. On FIFA, he had a centre mid card, so I might can't be a 10 now, can he?
I think he's quite a versatile player. He can play 10, I think. But yeah, it's just a situation we have to see what happens. Again, it depends on the market. I think we'll start to see more when this Mount situation is put to bed a little bit, because I feel like Chelsea just want to get this over and done with as soon as possible. Everyone wants to get it over and done with as soon as possible. I think in regards to it, we just need a definite answer of what's happening on this front, because it's still all up in the air, isn't it? But yeah, again, we just have to wait and see what happens with Mason Mount and then go from there. But for now, I haven't really heard too much concrete stuff on that.
There you go. But would you personally agree that if Mount goes, Havertz has already gone, that we do need someone else in those positions?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Someone that can definitely score goals and who can also maybe even play wing as well. Versatility is key in everything. So yeah, hopefully can do. But yeah, no, we'll see what happens. Just have to take it one step at a time.
Exactly. Pice, before we finish this one off, your thoughts on this? Because obviously Gabri Veiga, yes, we've been linked to him. To me, Gabri Veiga only makes sense if Gallagher leaves as well. And then you use him as a proper backup 10 in the centre. Because Gabri Veiga is going to play on the wing. As far from what I've heard and read about him, and from the little bits that I've seen about him, it doesn't look like someone that's going to play on the wing. So as much as that, okay, yeah, you need a backup to Nkunku for the 10 role as well. So they understand. But you can't just have 3 wingers if you're going to play 2 every game. I know we're not in Europe, so we have less games, but 1 injury. And, that can clearly happen. Madueke doesn't have exactly the best injury record. Sterling had a couple of injuries this past season as well. So imagine going in, you can't go into the season with just having 2 wingers, can you, Pice? We will need to do something. And sure, Mount can play that wide area. A lot of fans probably wouldn't be happy with it, even if Poch used Eriksen in a similar position at Spurs. But do you see us going for someone eventually? If, obviously, I understand what Nathan says in terms of it will only be after Mount leaves. But surely we need to do something there. And because, we've all focused on our outgoings and we want a midfielder and we want a striker, maybe another one now after Jackson. Or does anyone see Jackson being used as a winger? Which he apparently was originally before being turned into a striker by Villarreal.
I think we'll do something in the number 10 position. I don't think we'll just have Nkunku there. I think we'll need another one, Havertz and Mount, going. So, I think whether it will be Gabri Veiga, whether it will be, I don't know, Florian Wirtz or, Szoboszlai. I don't know, I'm just throwing names out there. Maddison looks like he's going to Spurs. Who else? I mean, I don't know. There could be others on the list. I'm not quite sure. But, I think we'll do something there. I think we need someone who, like you said, can play attacking mid, but can also cover the wings. Because then I think then you don't have to replace Pulisic. You can play that player on the wing if you have to. So trying to find that versatile player will be difficult, but I think it's something we need to do. And I think, however big or small those Gabriel Veiga links were, I think the fact that they were credited links, right? If Maurizio said we discussed the release clause internally, we inquired how to pay that release clause. That is obviously something they're looking to do is get another sort of attacking-minded midfielder in. So I think that one will happen after Mason Mount goes.
Fair enough. I was going to ask Nathan if he has anything else that he feels we should discuss quickly. So Nathan, if there's anything, maybe think about it for a second. I'll come to you with that in a second. Otherwise, we have the super chat by Miguel here, who says, in my opinion, reasons why new owners are mostly targeting young players is due to the new stadium, which will limit transfers while that's in process. In that case, younger players will last longer than those who are 27 plus. I mean, I see how you've come to that conclusion, but I just think the owners want young players regardless of building a new stadium or not. So, but I guess maybe it plays a part a little bit. I think with all the money Clear Lake have and all the money Bowley and all the consortium have, I think we're in a little bit of as much as the stadium is going to be expensive as crazy, but I think we're in a different position to like a club like Arsenal that then has to limit their spending for God knows how long. Because it's not like the building the stadium will have anything to do with financial fair play or anything. It won't restriction-wise limit us in terms of spending. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic and think we're going to spend like crazy all the time. But yeah, I mean, I guess I see where you're coming from. I mean, Nathan, do you at all think he has a point with what you're saying?
I can see where he's coming from, but I don't think it's the main thing. Right. This is the reason why they're targeting younger players. I think it's just part of the multi-club model they're trying to build. potentially looking at Portugal next, and the whole idea of of a young project. And I think it can work, this project, but it's going to need a lot of patience for sure, because it's something totally different from the Abramovich area, where it was winning trophies every year, wasn't it? Where now it's kind of building from scratch, and hopefully over good 5 years later or something, Chelsea can compete in, maybe even less. Like Chelsea competing every year, but for now, I see his point, but I don't think it's the main reason why.
Fair dues. Similar thoughts, I assume.
Yeah, I think what I'd say on this is the stadium funds, or the funds, I think are going to be included in, because obviously they bought us for, what was it, 2.75, and then they added another $1.5 billion or something like that, guaranteed funds. So I think probably most of those are going to go towards the stadium, to be fair. So I think it will be separate.
Maybe so. Although, yeah, then we'll need to make good profit consistently if all that extra money is supposed to go to the stadium, because the stadium will cost you probably $1 billion, probably more. Who knows? That is a tough one. Nathan, is there anything else that there's this is relevant Chelsea news that you're like, maybe we should touch on this quickly?
Maybe Datro Fofana. I can say he doesn't want to go to Strasbourg.
Why not?
No idea.
Well, maybe you're going anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking with the whole, when I was saying multi-club model with Strasbourg already, and Chelsea, one of the Chelsea players doesn't even want to go there. I'm just thinking, what a great start. Kind of defeats the whole point already.
Their manager today, by the way. Sacked the manager. Huh? Strasbourg sacked the manager today.
Have they?
Yeah.
That's mental. I didn't even know that. My days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be good then. But I mean, depending on who the new manager is, maybe that's a good thing. I guess we'll have
Graham Potter.
Frank Lampard, why not?
That'd be funny.
But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. Nathan, thank you very, very much for giving us all your time. Please do check out Nathan's socials down in the description, both his Twitter and his Instagram are linked down below. Check him out for all your big Chelsea news when it comes to, just, you don't necessarily post all the time, but when you do post, you have something important to say. So that's why you should absolutely follow him, especially while Chelsea are doing a lot of deals in and out of Italy. You working with Marzio, absolutely worth checking out. Of course, the same goes for Pais. As always, check out his website, londonsfirst.com, as well as his Twitter for all your latest Chelsea news. And one more time, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, please do subscribe. If you haven't already, that would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button on your way out. Just one click of a button that really helps me out and spreads these streams and videos out to more people. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.